Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Work, where we explore how to make work better through the power of relationships. My name's Jason Lauritsen. I'm the author of 2 books, a leadership trainer and speaker on a mission to fix how we treat people at work. Now, this episode is kind of a reality check for us all. It's reminding us that every relationship requires work. You can't only show up for the good stuff and expect to build strong, trusting relationships that last. We discuss the importance of embracing that any relationship, whether it's personal or work, will get messy at times. And that makes extending grace and sticking with the relationship so important when it happens. My guest this week is Amber Rios Flores. Now, Amber is a force of nature. Her bio uses the word relentless, and that is a perfect description for her passion for teaching and facilitating and building connection with others. She's a senior onboarding partner at LinkedIn, a veteran, a parent, and a gamer. Now, this conversation was so much fun. Prepare to meet the cheeseburger Care Bear. And you know, when Care Bears are involved, it's going to be fun. So please enjoy my conversation with Amber. Amber, I'm delighted that you are here. Thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So let's start by, I want to get to know you a little bit better, particularly some things that might help us understand your relational style, if you will. I don't know if that's a thing. I think it is, but let's start with some questions that just unpack a little bit about how you are in relationships. So first question is, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? Where are you at on the scale?
Like a lot of people, I feel like I often refer to myself as an introverted extrovert. So depends on the situation.
I think that's. Thank you for not. What I'm finding as I ask this question is that after Susan Cain published her book Quiet, and kind of brought ambivert into the language. Everybody's an ambivert now because nobody wants to commit to one side or the other anymore. It seems like it's kind of we're all in the middle. So you're an introverted extrovert. What does that mean? Give me what's the quick version of what that means for you?
It means that I am a master at being solo and prefer to do a lot of things solo. But I need people, and that part of me just comes out and like spills sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me put that back. That's the extrovert side that just spills. But my natural state, I think, is extroverted, but I'm too afraid to go extrovert, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Save that one for your therapist. That one's
right.
Well, okay. So what I'm curious about, the reason I asked that question is, how do you think that introverted extrovert that's what you said. How do you think that affects how you approach relationships or how you sort of show up in relationships?
I would say that it makes me more thoughtful in how I show up and when I show up. I guess when and how depends, but there is an order there, depending. And I have to be more thoughtful and intentional towards one or the other because I don't know that I flex into it as easily as I would like to. One side or the other is what I'm saying.
Okay. Got it. So what does that look like in terms of do you find it then does the introvert lead? Does the extrovert lead? Like, I'm curious what that looks like. And when you're thinking about, like if you're needing to go, you're going to go have a coffee meeting with someone that you just met or someone that you're trying to build a relationship with, what does that look like?
That's the more introverted side of me. That kind of just naturally takes over and doesn't want to people. And the extroverted in me is like, we need this. We have to go. We have to do this. And so the introvert in me would cancel. The extrovert would be like, no, we need to go. So I think they kind of work hand in hand, honestly.
Being a human is so confusing and complicated.
So complex. There's a lot going on here.
I think it's all happening for all of us right below the surface. It's all going on. All right. So let's dig even a little bit deeper. What is something that you learned as a child growing up about relationships that shapes how you think about or approach relationships still today?
Hands down, it would probably be to leave your garbage at the door. Just leave it there. Don't walk in with it. And you put on whatever mask that you picked for the day, and that's what you're leaving with. That's what I learned kind of as a child. And I try to be the opposite of that now. I try harder, I think, to be more self and to bring the garbage in the room with me, or wear it, if you will, as opposed to leaving it at the door. So I would say that absolutely shaped the way that I kind of think of those kind of things.
I think I've heard, and I don't know if I think this is the same thing, but it's sort of like what I'm hearing from you is like you put your mask on, you change different masks based on who you're showing up with, and don't bring anything with you that's going to make them uncomfortable or that's going to cause any issues or whatever.
Correct.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, got it.
Correct. Yeah. 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 I felt that this morning, like I was in a meeting. And part of the reason that I'm known and my brand is the way that it is because what you see right now is the same person that you're going to get a meeting with senior level executives or a friend or you or anybody else. It's the same Amber, same weird quirks. You were asked a random question about Care Bears and what thing would be on your stomach if you were a Care Bear. And I said, I would have a cheeseburger on my stomach, a cheeseburger in my hand, and a cheeseburger in my stomach, because that's just who I am, right? And everybody was like, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, why? It's like something as simple as that, right? But like it translates to everything that I do, and that it's you get the same. There's no mask wearing.
I love that. I love that. That's a great lesson. Not an easy thing to do all the time, but an important thing to
No,
do.
it's not. So. No, it's not.
All right. Last question to our get to know you question. In 5 words or less, what is the fastest way to lose Amber as a friend?
Being dishonest.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Pretty important.
You kind of capped me at 5 words, so I'm just being honest.
It's like it was either that or I had 2 paragraphs ready.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you get the short one. It is what it is. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a good way to get us oriented into how you think about relationships and what's important to you. So let's get into the deeper dive. I asked you, or the homework I assigned to you before showing up was to think about 2 different relationships. One of them being a personal relationship that you feel is really strong, positive, healthy, so that we could dig into that a little bit to try to learn from what's working there that maybe we can apply to making work better. So I'm hoping you did your homework and came with a personal relationship. So tell us a little bit about this relationship to get us started.
You'll probably kill me because I was actually just thinking about this last weekend. It is not a person, but instead a group of women. And so I say that to you because for the homework part, what you're talking about in terms of like talking about the relationship, they are all the same ish. Ish. So this group, it is a small group of women that I've known for probably, I would say some of them almost 10 years, 10 years now. And we are at different facets in different areas and stages of our lives. So we have a wide variety of some who are just now having children, getting married, some who are not married and just getting engaged, maybe trying to. And then you have like me, been divorced, older kids about to be an empty nester, and some kind of in between, and a little bit of all over the map. It's kind of a small group. I don't know how many of us there are. I'd probably say 5, but it's a pretty small number. Pretty small number.
So how did this? I mean, so I guess I'm. This is an awesome answer to the question. I always love someone who takes a question and makes it whatever it needs to be for you. So I appreciate that. Tell me more about how did this group come together? What was like kind of the origin? Like, how did it develop over time to become this important group for you?
Some was through work relationships. Some of us met through work, and then it kind of morphed into a little bit bigger. And fourscore and many year ago, or many party ago, we were getting wasted together. I mean, that really, we were just going out, and mine back then was escaping a lot of things. And so we just kind of connected over our need and want and desire to go out every weekend or so. That's kind of like how it came about, to be honest with you. A little bit of work, but really it was just the going out and freedom, girls partying together, having fun is really how it came about.
So fast forward now to today. This group is the group that came to mind as this positive, healthy relationship for you. What is it about this group that made them stand out? What do you value most? What do you get from these relationships?
Growth. Growth. It's we just had a tea party this past weekend, so they are fresh in mind. And I was very reflective after leaving, because I just was able to, the awareness that I have to be able to recognize the group and where we stand right now is pretty awesome. We are now, flash forward to however many years it's been, grown up, if you will. A lot of things have changed for a lot of us. And I've had some of the most real, raw, open conversations I think I've ever had in my entire life. To give you just some small examples, in my own struggles, I kind of pulled away from the group because I'm one of the first to go through as the empty nester, and my similarities aren't necessarily falling in line with the rest of the group. So I'm trying to figure out what is my place in this group. I'm about to move out of town. I've been struggling with it. And so I kind of pulled back, I isolated a bit, and then figured out, actually, no, I can actually have conversations, and chose to have them in person to say, hey, I can't do the party thing because I have a problem with, like, maybe I don't want to be around alcohol. I still struggle. Also, I don't know where I fit in the puzzle. And so that's why I've been kind of non-existent. And it fostered like this amazing, beautiful connection of, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I've got little kids and I can't always be around, but I now have that bandwidth to say, I will come to you. It's cool that you have kids. I don't care. Like, cool. Your husband's home. I don't, okay, I'll see you later. I can offer that space, but then also something was bothering someone. I thought I had cut off a friend, for example, like I had interrupted her. I've been working on my listening skills. And we were all talking, and we were talking about something very like kind of difficult. And I felt like I interrupted her. And in reflection on the way home, I was like, oh, I really just don't like that. So I called her, I left her this awesome, super awkward voicemail saying such, because she didn't answer. Even ended it with a, okay, thanks, bye. And she called me back and said she read the voicemail, of course, because the technology that we have. But she said, you know, sometimes you do interrupt. And so I appreciate the fact that you did acknowledge that, and you didn't this time, but I appreciate that you're acknowledging that. And I was like, oh, and it was like, ew, you're not supposed to say that. Like, that's true. You're supposed to be like, no. But like, at first I was like, ew. And the old me probably would have been like, I'm kind of done with that conversation. But instead I was like, that's really cool. And the space that I can have that is very unique, that we can have these transparent, difficult, raw conversations that, 10 years ago we hid from. We would have never dreamed of having these conversations, and it's pretty incredible. So that's why. And there's a group of them.
That's pretty awesome, to have that kind of a group of people for that. So when you think about this group that represents this relationship that we're talking about, what would you say you've learned about positive, healthy relationships, or how to have them through your experience with them, that you've been able to maybe apply elsewhere, or that's been helpful to you in other relationships? What have you taken from your relationship with these women?
Probably a couple things. I think the most important is that any good relationship in any sort of facet takes work. And you can't just show up to the table and be like, hey, Jason, like, you should be doing all the work. And if you want to have a difficult conversation, I'm super busy and not about it. It's just not going to work. And the conversations that you have that are real, but also are built around listening, being the component, acknowledging the other person, and then saying, in the words of my therapist, like, you can't control the way someone's going to react to what you say. However, you can control how you respond to it, right? So it's a matter of like, just in me feeling, I don't even like using the word attacked, but like in that split moment when she was like, you actually do that. And I was like, you're not supposed to admit that, right? Instead of like taking that home and being like, shutting down the conversation, because I've done it in the past, right? When somebody was real and raw with me and I wasn't ready to hear, don't ask the questions that you don't want the answers to, is to be receptive to it. You have to have an open mind and be in this space that warrants and allows that conversation, or else you're just basically running up against a wall repeatedly and saying, I don't understand why things aren't changing.
Mm. Mm. That is a very good lesson and a very difficult one to learn, I think, for most of us. It takes time. Excellent. All right, so that was personal. Let's talk about the second one. Let's talk about a work relationship. And so I asked you to come prepared to talk about a significant relationship that was formed at work that's had a positive impact on you or your career. So tell us a little bit about that relationship.
Her name is Sarah, and Sarah started on a team that is separate to mine, works closely with. Organizationally, we work together, but she's on a separate team. And she, by her own accord, is and can come across somewhat abrasive, very straight, very direct. She came from a very corporate background, so where I work, obviously the flavor is different, the culture is different, it's more conversational and not, corporate. It's very like, you don't make friends at work. That's the kind of thing that she came into. And I even remember when she first started, she was like, yeah, I don't have work friends. And I was like, that's weird, but cool. And I am wildly opposite to that. So that's how we met. So we work together pretty closely, even though on different teams, but I help kind of support her.
So talk to me about the impact of this relationship. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what the relationship looks like today and kind of what impact it's had on you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting dynamic between the two of us, because from a business perspective, we couldn't be even in person. Aesthetically, all of the things we are, if you put us in a room together and you were like, tell me which ones are the closest friends, no one would probably pick us out. And we laugh about this all the time. And even when I met her mother-in-law was also just as surprised. From the business perspective, because of the way she is, even though I can turn on my like business speak, I can clean it up and do the whatever, the mask, if you will. There's a different approach that I take, and mine is built around relationships. I recognize that, ironically, for this, I wouldn't be where I am right now in my career if it wasn't for the relationships that I formed, and she hasn't really needed that space. And so it's a very much sort of approach where just do what I tell you to do is kind of how she thinks, right? And gets annoyed and frustrated and otherwise. And her communication style follows suit. Whereas mine is cherries and rainbows and roses, because everybody has a different way of being able, there's a different way to deliver it, right? And also building those relationships will sometimes smooth over things like that, where it allows you the space to send a more direct email or communications or something to that effect. So over the last couple of years, I have learned to be more direct and straight and to the point where I needed to be, where I would often let other people walk all over me and allow things to happen that I just was like, I don't like, no, where she would kind of build me up in that sort of work relationship to have that. And I came in and taught her how to make friends at work, for one, and taught the difference in relationship building and how much of an impact it makes. So for example, she was tasked at one point with a business leader. And I said, and my recommendation was, did you even try to just have a conversation just to get to know them first? Well, why would I do that? Well, a lot of reasons. For me, it's like common knowledge. I'm like, it just makes sense. But I actually had to like pause and take a step back and kind of explain. And in the moment she did that and started kind of exploring some of those routes, it started being a game changer. And now she leans on me to like double check the comms that she sends out, right? Just to make sure, like, is it too direct? And we were in a meeting yesterday, And I literally was messaging her in real time. And I was like, teacher, speak, because her voice changes and we laugh about it. And then I was like, check your face. And then I taught her sneezing, smiling with your eyes and saying, think about one thing. I don't need to know what it is that makes you happy. And in that moment when you're in a meeting, don't think about it like extensively, but put it in your head and just sneeze and correlate and translate to your video face. We learned how to appreciate and bounce off one another's like differences instead of being like, yeah, she's just too much. I laugh when people are like, and I'm like, have you actually given it a chance to build a relationship with her to figure out how to best work together? And now we are solid partners in the way that we kind of approach things. And I know if I want direct feedback, guess who I'm going to? And vice versa, right? Because we know how to deliver. It's pretty awesome.
Sounds really like the kind of work relationships we need a lot more of. What would you say you have learned through how that relationship works, or maybe sort of the dynamics in that relationship? What have you taken from that or learned from that that you've been able to apply then to other relationships to have a more positive impact?
I think it's given me a taste of my own medicine. It's easy to say, well, it's because you're not building relationships. And then in the same breath to say, well, they're difficult to work with. I don't want to work with them. I don't like them. They think differently than me, like way too differently. But it's that embracing and enveloping in the best of ways, not in a choking out kind of way, like I can't breathe, it's too much, but instead maybe more like a hug, a soft hug embrace of bringing someone in. It's a bit of a softer approach to things instead of being so, I guess, what is the word, linear? Like everything just has to be divided. We are already divided by like all of our differences and things that are going on, and celebrating and encouraging this and saying, but did you think of it this way? Positioning it a different way, but like my way doesn't always work. I recognize that. Sometimes I am too jokey. Sometimes not everybody wants to know that I have a cheeseburger in my stomach, right? Like people don't want to always hear those things, and I get it. And like having someone like that and knowing who your people are helps having the right people in the room when you have difficult conversations, that you can say, let me bring in another player who I know can speak to XYZ to soften the blow from whatever it is that you need to do to get something done. It can make a world of a difference.
Yeah. Well, and it also sounds to me too that I think having, cultivating relationships like that, like the one you have with Sarah, I think is so important and so powerful. Having that person that will come to you after a meeting and be like, yeah, you were a little much in that one. Like you might want to dial it down a little bit, or, hey, where were you? Like I needed you to step up in this moment and you were nowhere to be seen. Like those relationships are so awesome and you learn so much through it. And so that's really important. Investing in that is really valuable. This webcast is sponsored by my longtime friends at Inspiring Workplaces. Now, if you are someone who's working to create an engaging and inspiring workplace for your employees, and of course you are, that's why you're here, then listen up. Inspiring Workplaces is a global community of tens of thousands of HR and employee experience professionals that you can join for free. As a member, you will gain access to thousands of articles and videos and podcasts and events that will help you change the world by changing the world of work. They are also home to the Inspiring Workplaces Awards that recognize the best workplaces in the world. You can learn about the application process at their website. So please go visit inspiring-workplaces.com to learn more and to join the community. That's inspiring-workplaces.com. Okay, so let's bring this home. Right? The reason we're having this conversation is to learn from your relationship so we can make work better. So let's go back and take a look at these lessons, these awesome lessons that you've shared. And the first one, if I interpreted this correctly, from your relationship with your sort of your super friends group of women, was that any good relationship requires work, and that you have to not only be there for the good stuff, but you got to show up for the hard stuff, right? You got to stay in it even when it's not the fun, all fun stuff together. So I guess I'll pose this back to you. Like, when you think about how we can take that lesson and bring it to work to make work a better relationship or experience for people, what comes to mind in terms of how we do that specifically? Like, what kinds of things can we do? Should we do? Should we be thinking about, do you think?
Okay, I would say giving grace to yourself and to the people that you're working with, because in whatever situation, whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's going to get so ugly based on what you just said back to me. I'm thinking back to this Supergirl group, Superwoman group, and it got so messy and so ugly at one point that I didn't even know if we were even going to be friends. In fact, there were some behaviors that I was like, I probably wouldn't be friends with me. I understand. And yet here we are, like many years later, thinking back, because we stayed and we stuck with it. There it is. We stuck with it, and we were willing to say, yeah, this kind of sucks. And I don't really like how this feels. I don't really like what you're doing or I'm doing. Maybe we didn't recognize at the time, but we stuck with it. Because of that, we built something beautiful. And that can be translated into any sort of relationship, specifically work, that it definitely has to get ugly sometimes, and you're going to fight some fights. You may not have anybody on board with you, but you don't know what the outcome is going to be if you just give up and you just throw in the towel and you're like, it's gross. I don't like it.
Well, and I loved the example you offered earlier is, I think, a really powerful one. That I think when we care about what we do, when we're invested in our work, and we try to bring our full cheeseburger Care Bear self into everything, we sometimes we knock people over by accident, or we say things. And I mean, this is work relationship or personal relationships. And then when that happens, the key thing is to circle back, right? Stick with it, right? Come back and say, listen, I'm really sorry. I got a little fired up there. I shouldn't have, whatever. I talked over you, or I stepped on your idea. That wasn't fair. I didn't understand. Own it and lean into that relationship. I think that's what sticking with it often looks like. Is you're going to have those moments. You're going to have bad days. I love, I think it was Brene Brown. At one point, I heard her talking about how having this idea in your mind that, like, everybody is doing the best they can
Mhm.
given what is in front of them at that moment. And there's days when we are not we're not as best as we want to be. It is what it
Yeah.
is. And so I love that as a lesson. So give grace, apologize when you need to, stick with it. That's awesome.
I might add one thing that's really important to that too, just in hearing you kind of say that back, is also in embracing the suck. There's a lot of us, who, myself included, who, when it gets gross and uncomfortable, it just like is like, ugh, I just get it off. I don't want it. But instead, when you embrace it, but also while you're embracing the suck, is also recognizing to not stay in that space too long, because that space, right, is where the negativity starts, the resentment, so on and so forth, all these other descriptive words that could derail things. So there's the ownership piece, but it's a sliver and a piece of a puzzle that can't take too much of it. Otherwise, you're going to go one direction or the other. And I don't know what the secret sauce is. I'm still messing it up every day. I like to say that I make better mistakes tomorrow, but I think it's an important part.
Mm. That's really interesting. Unsurprising, I guess, that you would make I associate embrace the suck with military, because I've heard folks that have spent time in the military are the ones that tend to say that, because
I
it's
was, so.
very real for them. So yes, I know. That's why it's like, it's not when I became familiar with it when my son was heading to the Marine Corps. There, embrace the suck, embrace the suck. And there's something
Yeah.
really that, like, if you can stay in it and get through it, that actually galvanizes the relationship often. And so
Yeah.
there is real lesson in there. Don't but my caveat, this is, don't embrace the suck forever. A lot
Yes.
of people like stay in the suck so long that it actually starts stealing away who they are. So
Yes.
in relationships that matter, embrace it, but also make it better, right? Get through it. So that's an awesome lesson. Lesson number 2, you said, which I think is really important too, from your relationship with Sarah. Kind of what I heard you say, and I'm interpreting this back, so you can tell me if I got this right, but that lead with kind of thinking about how to embrace people or to bring them in, to build relationship first, invest in that relationship as a mechanism to make work easier or to sort of make things happen, as opposed to trying to go from point A to point Z in a straight line without any of the middle, is what at least I think that's what I heard, is relationship first.
It's basically like every self-help thing that I've ever heard or somebody quote or whatever is talking about relationships, or not even, or is how do you get from point zero, how do you get from the start to the finish line? And where the common mistakes are made. I've seen it in business. I see it almost on a daily basis that people like come in and they're like, hey, I'm Joe and I'm going to change this and I'm going to do whatever, right? And we just go from there. And then we don't want, like, we're wondering like, why didn't it work? Where did we go wrong? And it's because you're so busy and you're so like quick to move because we just want to get things done. We want things done yesterday, that we don't have enough time to just pause and like set the foundation correctly, which is sometimes as simple as building a relationship. It is more often we hear, to the other part of what I've heard from self-help, is that people just want to feel heard. So why would it be any different in this sort of sense? If you want to get anything done, from the relationship with my teenager to my superwoman group, to working with Sarah, to working with my boss, people just want to be heard. And if it's even taking 1 minute to just pause and say, you know what, you seem off today. Or how was your day? Or I heard the weather sucks. Even if it's something like that, that may to someone else seem disingenuous, it's actually not. It's just taking a pause to see where that kind of comes, to lowering the guards down, because we are by nature and by the world that's created around us on edge all the time. That helps bring those down and kind of set the tone for how things will proceed.
And I would add to that too, that the one thing I think to universally recognize, and I think it's interesting that you noted earlier, you thought that sort of Sarah had been able to get where she's gotten, or to a certain point, without relationships or without investing in relationships. And I would argue that she likely could have probably gotten a lot farther, a lot faster had she had relationships. And I would also guarantee that there are relationships that were in place that were helping her, even if she didn't notice that they were there, or they sort of happened almost by accident. But the relationships we have with people, I mean, people are incredibly creative and incredibly resourceful at work in making, sort of supporting the things that they want to happen and undermining the things they don't want to happen. And so just strategically, and as a matter of wanting, if you want to get things done or have an impact, if you invest in the relationships and build some friends and some allies and some people that want to support, that makes everything easier to have people that are supporting what you're doing. Because if you skip those people, you skip the relationships, you try to blow past them and go, which is kind of what I heard you sort of implying, is if we try to go straight past them, kind of like Monopoly, right? Go straight to the start or whatever. They are also incredibly committed and resourceful in undermining what you do. And you can, so it's like, what do you want? Do you want a team of people that are lifting you up and supporting you? Or do you want a team of people that would love to see you fail and are going to take little shots to make sure that everything is hard? So relationships are incredibly powerful in that way too. So I think,
sorry to interrupt you, Jason. I just thought about this and what you were saying. So like my intention with Sarah is not to say that I don't think that she's built relationships, but I figured out what it is that I was trying to articulate. It's that she clearly has had some sort of relationships to get where she's at. She's much more senior in her career than I am, to be very clear. But the notion and the explanation of what I view as a relationship and a work relationship versus what she sees in a work relationship is completely different. And it has changed and it continues to evolve year over year in terms of what that looks like, right? So if you think like 15, 20 years ago, the notion of a relationship, when somebody was talking about it, looked really different to the way that I would describe a work relationship now, where I'm like having dinner with her. I went to the symphony for Christmas. Like, I don't think that either of us would have said that, many years ago. It's the change in where you are and the company you are. So I just wanted to make sure I added that piece in because I think that's important too.
It is. It is. I mean, and I think there is the language we use too is really
Mhm.
important and powerful in terms of there's different kinds of relationships, which we're not
Yeah,
going to have time to dig into today.
yeah,
There's allies and there's sort of strategic sort of partners. But then there's like real friends and sort of human connection relationships. And that I think is what I mean, when you can get that, when you can find or glimpse or connect to that, right? When the cheeseburger Care Bear kind of version of you shows up and can invite them into that, and they can bring their sort of unicorn candy corn Care Bear into it, like that's where the magic happens, right? Everything
yeah.
else flows out of that. So Amber, this is delightful. This is such great insight. And I am so grateful that you chose to spend some time and share your wisdom and experience with us. I really appreciate you being here.
Same. Thanks for the invite. I loved it. Every minute of it.
Awesome. Well, we'll do it again soon. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. More importantly, I hope you learned something from the episode that can help you right away. Now, if you'd like to reflect on what you can learn from your own healthy, positive relationships to make work better, I've included a link in the description below where you can access and download what I call the relationship reflection exercise. This includes the same questions that I ask each of my guests to reflect on prior to our conversation on the webcast. Also, if you found today's episode valuable, I'd ask 3 quick favors of you. Number 1, please like the episode. By liking the video and adding a comment if something spoke to you or stood out to you as really significant, you give me some great and valuable feedback, but you also help others find the video. I'd also ask you to subscribe to the channel. That does 2 important things. One, it makes sure that you won't miss any upcoming episodes, and it sends me the message that you like the kind of content that I'm creating here. And finally, please share this video with someone who you think might benefit. What better gift can you give someone than the gift of better relationships and a better work experience? I'm really grateful that you were here today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.